Now, remember when interest rates went up in May 2022, the then Shadow Treasurer said the sky was falling in and it was all Scott Morrison's fault.
This is a full-blown cost of living crisis on Scott Morrison's watch. When things are going well in the economy, he takes all of the credit. And when times are tough in the economy, he takes none of the responsibility.
Now, of course, Jim Chalmers has come to resemble that exact quote, which he may well be repeating about himself in the mirror. Because while there was one under the previous government, there have been 12 under this government. And if it was true the first time, it is true this time in June in 2022, this time in July of that same year. It's just as true in August, it's just as true in September, it's just as true in October, it's just as true in November, it's just as true in December, it's just as true in February of last year, in March of last year, of May in last year, of June of last year, in November of last year. There have been a dozen rate rises under this government, the government that promised to do something about cost of living. 12 times it has gone up. Yet the political conventional wisdom is if it goes up the 13th time, that will be when Australians will have had enough of the economic management of the bloke who gave us a preview of his attitudes towards being the Treasurer before he was the Treasurer. In fact, let's play it again. Jim Chalmers, when interest rates went up once under the previous government, and now is this Jim Chalmers really telling us what he truly thinks about his own government after they've gone up 12 times?
This is a full-blown cost of living crisis on Scott Morrison's watch. When things are going well in the economy, he takes all of the credit. And when times are tough in the economy, he takes none of the responsibility.
Now, the reason I mention all of this yet again is because of the reality of what people are sitting in right now. I talk about the inflation python. They claim credit because it's not getting any worse. Well, it is already turning people Ribena purple. And it has been for a couple of years now. Well, the Reserve Bank, we got to see some of the minutes inside just how close the 13th was. Just how close we came to the 13th one, the one that would apparently pop the blood vessels of Australians when it comes to this government. The Reserve Bank and Michelle Bullock have also made it clear, no rate cut this year. None. So you may well hear rampant speculation here, there and everywhere. Well, again, according to the minutes of the Reserve Bank, that is, of course, a governor handpicked by this government, that is holding on for grim life before it gets swept away, replaced by people more friendly, including the unions, towards what the government wants to do. The reality is, this close is how we came to yet another interest rate rise. Let me read from the stories about this today in The Australian, which include extracts of the minutes. The Reserve Bank seriously considered an immediate increase to the cash rate in August, and how a rate cut before the end of the year would actually keep inflation above the target until 2027. This ain't over anytime soon, kids. They said it was time to get rid of the last mob after one interest rate rise. 12 later, the case is 12 times as clear about the economic mismanagement of this government. Minutes from the Central Bank's August meeting reaffirmed that the RBA's Governor, Michelle Bullock's view that rate relief is unlikely to be delivered until 2025, and shed new light on how close they came to hiking it. Quote, given members, that being everyone of the Reserve Bank who makes the decision around this, it's not just the Reserve Bank Governor, they agreed to the commitment to prioritise returning inflation to target, that is between 2% and 3%. Remember, we had a month where it was over 4%, we had a quarter where it was closer to 4% than it was to 3%. Now, all of those things would justify an immediate increase in the cash rate. This matters because the people who are just holding on, like anyone who is just holding on to the side of the cliff, eventually loses the strength to do so. A third of Australians have paid off their own house. Well done to you, you worked hard. A third of Australians are paying off a house right now and they are frightened. A third are renting, presumably in properties that are either outright owned by somebody who's already worked hard to pay it off or are being paid off by somebody who most likely has another mortgage. That means that under Albo's rate rises, $500,000 loan, that's the average loan in Australia, $14,500 is what you have had to find since May of last year, May of 2022. A $750,000 loan, you've had to find $21,000. $1 million, you've had to find $30,000 you didn't have behind the couch. Now, you found it because you haven't had to sell your house yet. But you've had to go without, and what may well have been very comfortable from the 15th of the month to the 15th of the month becomes a little bit uncomfortable in week 4, and then a little bit uncomfortable in week 3, and for many people very uncomfortable even a few days after they are paid. It is why too little too late tax cuts don't touch the sides. It's why pretending that $25 for every mansion or one-bedroom unit when it comes to its power bills does not touch the sides, because the increases from the government that was supposed to bring them down is way higher than those numbers. It's all just so they have billions of dollars that have been piddled up against the wall, so they have a slogan for an election. Don't buy it. Don't forget, when this python was squeezing, they took the $1,500 off 10 million taxpayers. They rerouted that to a Biden-esque scheme of forgiving student debt. I'll give you the tip. They were already voting for you, Albo and Jim. We also learn that one of the consequences of the squeeze, you've heard the big lie, the big squeeze, that has been going on for too long, a couple of years, and a chance, as the RBA is now talking about, not just of 2024, 25, 26, but maybe 2027? So that is literally 2 elections away. One due next year, and then potentially, yes, you could have another one in 2027. This is madness that we are in right now. And I'll tell you why the people in Canberra couldn't give a tuppence razoo. And it's not just because they're swimming around in money, but it's because the people around them are swimming in money as well. Today, we learn yet again from the organisations who do not receive the same sort of government support, because allegedly there's no votes in it, as businesses that are going to greenify the future or make things like solar panels in Australia, all the rest of it, right? 4 million. Used to be 3.7. 4 million people are having trouble putting food on the table. Wake up. Wake up, Canberra. This is so front and centre. And we are the frogs in the pot that, okay, if it was boiling like this, we wouldn't go anywhere near it from a couple of years ago. Well, it's boiling, baby. And we're the ones that are suffering right now. A staggering 3.7 million Australian households have reported struggling to put food on the table in the last 12 months. Now, we told you a version of this number when it came from the good people of Food Bank. This time, it's a new organisation called At Work Australia. It also noticed that between August 2022, February 23, inflation was at a 33-year high. 53% of Australians struggle to afford basic needs like food and shelter. Why is this not the first question in question time? Why is this not the thing that they hammer a Prime Minister about in a press conference? Why is this something that is not the talk of the halls of the building that allegedly is filled with the people who represent us? Well, of course, the Prime Minister has paid $600,000. He's got not one but 2 brand new jets that are coming his way. Yes, ordered by the previous government, but not cancelled by him. The cost of that, $450 million. The Voice referendum, $450 million, so he could buy a place in history. Of course, politicians have got not 1, not 2, but 3 pay rises. Public servants have received the largest pay increases in a decade. So unsurprisingly, many of the people, and I know there are good public servants who often watch this show and go, Paul, not all of us, but you get my point when we're speaking about many of your colleagues. Why are they not worrying about any of this? Because they get a pay rise that's the biggest in a decade, just like the MPs get one. And now, today, the people who work at Parliament as well, the parliamentary staffers, Team red, team blue, team yellow, team green, what are all of them? Massive pay rises and cultural leave, on top of everything else, domestic violence leave, which I support, the obvious mental health days, personal, all of that stuff, right? The federal government, apparently, this is the maximum pay rise that is allowed under the rules, according to the ABC. They also get travel allowances. The proposed enterprise agreement, which was put to a vote on Monday, so presumably it has been supported, but we'll double check, is widely expected to be approved. It will give approximately 2,000 political, so MP, ministerial and electorate staff a pay rise of 11.2% over the next 3 years. 4% in the first year, almost 4% in the second year, 3.5% in the 2 years retrospectively. So they get a pay rise backwards as well. There will also be 3 days of leave for any staff to attend significant religious or cultural obligations associated with a particular faith or culture. Now, I'm fascinated by this one because we already have a scenario where, well, you can pick and choose your public holidays. Certainly, January 26th, if you don't want to do that, you can take that at another time. Now, obviously, there are people who already have the gazetted public holidays, generally speaking, in and around things like the Christian public holidays. And again, I don't have a problem with people taking one of those days off. Like if you don't observe Good Friday, then you can take it off for what is the more appropriate day for your faith. But on top of all of the public holidays that exist, generally speaking, in and around the Christian calendar, we're going to whack another 3 days on top of that for your faith or culture. It keeps going. First Nations staff will also receive an extra day a year off for NAIDOC activities and up to 6 days or 2 years of full ceremonial obligations. What? Now, again, are we getting to a system here? And again, it'll be a long time before it's there, and to merely suggest it on television means apparently I'm setting my hair on fire. The gazetted public holidays are, of course, based in and around, generally speaking, the Christian calendar. Are we going to have options about those particular days, or do you have those days and everyone who is outside of the faith, will they get all the extras as well as? No wonder these people, honestly, no wonder these people have got no idea that the economy is not just numbers. The reality of the economy is not what you can massage out of Treasury. The reality of people's lived experience right now, today, is a world of pain. Pay rise, pay rise, pay rise for the politician, pay rise for the staffers, pay rise for the public servants. For us idiots, just pay more tax, shut up and be grateful, because we gave everyone a tax cut.